Hello, hello. Oh my God, it's the first time we have video in the podcast. Shout out to my husband for setting this all up because I am not the one with the high tech stuff. He is. So thank you so much to the new baby daddy for setting this up for me. What's up, guys? I can't believe I'm sitting down here. It's still so surreal recording my birth story. I've been so excited to do so because I kept so much to myself through the pregnancy. There's just so much that I wanted to keep sacred for me and for my baby and my family until after. I think there's so much power of sharing from experience versus just what we know. And thank you for being here and being interested on this part. If you're on YouTube, I am super excited to share it on here. I've shared about my miscarriage. I shared about my marriage on YouTube. I'm not too consistent with it, but the things that have really impacted my life and I feel like could help someone else, I definitely share there. So let's start from the top. I obviously, even before I got pregnant, I always was intrigued with the subject of birth. Home birth was definitely something I was going to seek for in my heart. I wanted to do it. I even way before I got married. It's funny because someone asked Mustafa once, like, "Yo, how do you feel about this?" And at the beginning, he was not too intrigued with the idea, but he's like, ever since I met Robelsiec, she's spoken about this. So I almost, when we got pregnant, it was like a no-brainer that she was going to go that route of a unmedicated birth, at least. So he kind of just like, look, it's her body, it's the birthing process. Yes, is our child, but I kind of figured that she was going to aim for that. So to give you guys a little background, my grandma had 5 babies with a midwife in back in the day, and one of them being 13 pounds. My other grandma, my dad's mom, had 8 kids with a midwife. My mom had 3 unmedicated hospital births where, she went to the hospital, but she didn't get anything. She didn't get Pitocin, she didn't get epidural, she didn't get nothing, 100% natural birth in the hospital. And I just been obsessed with the subject. I got really close in 2020 with a cousin of mine. She's like a third cousin of mine. And she went ahead and took the course to become a doula. So I would tell her, like, oh my God, when I get pregnant, you're going to be my doula. You're going to be my doula. And researching always the subject, obsessed. Like, you, if you know me, you know that I probably most likely had asked you about your birth story. And before I go into details, I just want to say that we are super women, and every single pregnancy, baby, and birth is unique and different. It's not to be compared, it's not to be used to put down anyone else. And this is my story. So this is my quick little disclaimer to you, especially if you're a mom watching this. And if you're really close to giving birth, I hope that you can hear this story and it be something that gets you excited to bring your baby here. So for me, around 30 something weeks, I did not see an OBGYN until about 18 weeks. I found an OBGYN to just look at while I looked for a midwife. Around 30 something weeks, I found one. It was actually really hard to find a midwife that I loved. I thought it was going to be way easier than it was. I found the amazing Cosmo Midwifery. They're based of 2 ladies, Jenna and Chloe, and they're in Brooklyn. And I emailed them, and intuitively, what they emailed me back, I said, they're it. I just felt it in my heart. They literally have a heart for what they do. Like, they really love being midwives. And I had spoken to a few midwives, mainly ones that would do it in a birth center, but not in my home. And so when I spoke to them, they were willing to do it anywhere. And so I was like, okay, you guys are it. So it was around 30 something, late 30s weeks that we set up with them. I stopped seeing my OBGYN. I started to see Chloe or Jenna. And we did like the last very little of the, like, I would say I did like 5 weeks or 6 weeks with them. Everything was fine. For them to take your case, you have to be a, like a normal, or I shouldn't say normal, but a healthy pregnancy. There's no complications. And then it was the game of finding a location, because they can't come to Jersey as certified New Yorker midwives. And so that took some time. They were even willing to do an Airbnb. And I had a whole bunch of Airbnb saved that had a bathtub, that had this, that had that. But it just so happened that my friend Luisi got selected to run the Tokyo Marathon. And she's super close to my house. I had lived with her before, so I feel very comfortable in her home, because it was my home for about 2 years. And I feel really comfortable with her. And she was going to be gone during kind of my due date, because it's all it's all an estimate. So that's it. It was all set up. That I was preparing myself way before my pregnancy for everything that came with birth. And she literally would leave March 5th, or she left March 5th to Tokyo. And I had the keys to the apartment. And whenever contractions or whatever started, I was going to head over there. So that's the background of it. I was doing everything on my end. I stopped sharing the weeks of my pregnancy on Instagram towards the end. I didn't want any, already without me sharing the weeks. People are like, how many weeks? I said already 40. When is she coming? And I'm like, look, I don't have a scheduled C-section, so I don't know when she's coming. She's coming when she's ready, because it's all an estimate. Their weight is an estimate. When they're coming is an estimate. None of that is like conquer stuff. You can be 2 weeks after. And even with my midwives, they're like, okay, let's say you're 2 weeks after your due days. We just have to check that the placenta and the cord is still feeding the baby, and you could keep going. I personally know people who have given birth at 43 weeks. So I stopped counting all of that. I was doing my part, but also not stressing myself in terms of like being in the medicine ball, drinking my raspberry tea, eating, pineapple, eating my dates, which those things is not that they're going to induce your labor or make you go into labor. It's just that they help the cervix. They help everything that they are prepared for what's coming. But I was in no rush. I would lie to you if there was in days that I was like, oh, I wish it was today, because it's like the unknown of when these contractions are going to come. And contractions are the only thing that actually tell you that you're in labor. And so there's two parts of labor. There's labor, and then there's active labor, which is when you're actually pushing. And so around 40 weeks, I think when I was 40 weeks that day, I had been feeling things, like, your back and your breast and all these things, but nothing real. I woke up Tuesday the 7th. That night, I went to sleep with really bad back pains. I was like, oh, my back hurts so bad. I was in the medicine ball. The back hurts so bad. Wednesday morning, I wake up with light cramps and back pains, what felt like light contractions, which were. I spent Tuesday night, I lose my mucus plug as well. But that doesn't mean anything. There's people who lose mucus plug and go 2 weeks without giving birth. But Wednesday, I had started my pains. They were like every 15 to 20, 30. They were not consistent. So when they're not consistent, it's pointless to time them. I actually was GBS positive, which is basically a bacteria that we carry. So if my water breaks and it's broken for a length amount of time, then we have to give me, or it's a choice to be given antibiotics, because since the baby's coming out of the birth canal, you don't want that bacteria to go into your baby, basically. So I was hoping for a late water breaking situation, so I didn't have to get antibiotics. My mom actually broke water late in all her pregnancies, and there's a high potential of how your mom birthed for you to birth, like the same kind of process. So Wednesday, I spent all day with contractions between 15, 20, 30. Around 7 p.m. or so, it started to be very consistent between 15, 10 minutes. Around 8 or 9 p.m., it started to be very consistent between 5 to 8, where, I couldn't ignore it anymore. Where I'd be sitting here in like 5 to 8 minutes, I'd be like, okay, like I felt them. They were bearable, but I couldn't ignore it. It wasn't anymore something that was ignoring. So then Mustafa and I texted them and said, why don't you track it for just 1 hour? Because they didn't want me tracking at all to get stressed. Why don't you track it for 1 hour so that you know if you should head out to Luis's house? So we tracked for 1 hour. They were all between 5, 6 minutes, and they were a minute long. So we started to get ready and headed to Luis's home Wednesday night, which is like 10 minutes away from me. So we got everything ready. It was me, my mom, and Mustafa. My birth team was me, my mom, Mustafa, Danisha, which is my doula, and then the midwives tag team. So it depended who was there that day. It was either going to be Chloe or Jenna. And we headed to Luis's house. We got there at night and we started to set up everything. I did want a birth pool, but I knew I didn't want to birth in the birth pool. And a lot of the times, a lot of people get excited to birth in the pool, but they can't because they relax so much that their contractions don't come quick enough to bring the baby. So Mustafa started to set up the birth pool. I had my contractions every 5 to 10 minutes. My doula actually lives upstate, so I notified her that I was going to head over to Luisi's, and she started to head down 4 hours from her home to get close to me. And in my mind at this time, I'm like, things are progressing. They're 5 to 8. Things are going to be within the next 3 hours or so. Wednesday night around 12 p.m., Chloe gets there and they're coming in every 5 minutes. I'm like, every 5 minutes, I'm breathing through them for a minute and then off. So I'm trying to progress. So she comes in, she looks at me in the face. I'm like at this point laying in I can't even, downward dog position, I guess you could say. And she looks at me in the eyes and she said, we're going to have a baby. And I get my hopes up. I'm like, okay, this pain I've had all day long is going to come to an end soon. Guys, from there, I went into the pool to bear the pain. I don't know for how long. I walked up and down the hallway. I tried peeing. I tried, to anything they would accelerate it. So then I looked at her. I had not been checked ever for centimeters. And I said, Chloe, can you please check me? And she said, well, what will the number mean to you? And I lied. I was like, nothing, because I knew that she didn't want to stress me about a number, because even the centimeters doesn't matter. Like you could be 4 centimeters for weeks. You could be 5 centimeters for a week. And so she said, okay, but I wanted to get checked because I needed a little hope. I've had all day in pain every 5 to 15 minutes. And so she goes to check me, my first cervical check ever. And she goes to check me and my water was so low, it was like, I guess about to break or whatever, that she breaks it by accident. She didn't mean to. She was just checking how many centimeters. And then I'm like, oh, I think my water broke, because I felt so much liquid come out without me being able to stop it. And so she's like, oh, sorry. I did feel something. I was like, wow, this uterus felt a little full, and it was actually my water. So she, comes off and my water is coming out. And I look at her excited to hear a high number of centimeters open. And I said, how many centimeters? And she looks at me and she goes, 4. And I was like, no way. I've been in pain all day. They've been coming every 5 minutes for the past 3 to 4 hours. What do you mean 4? But I didn't say much. I've kept calm. And I think the biggest thing out of all of this is your mindset. I had prepared for anything that was going to happen. I did the gentle hypnobirth app from second trimester to the end. I was doing my meditations. I had a whole playlist. I was locked in. The place was dark, no lights on. I was locked in with my team to run my marathon, because birthing is a marathon. So she said 4. I'm a little disappointed, but I say nothing. I say, okay, no problem. She said, it doesn't mean anything, Robelsiec. It could be from 4 to 10 in an hour. It could be from 4 to 10 early. And she said, you're tired. You've been in so much pain. Why don't you try to sleep? And I know it sounds crazy. I thought she was crazy too when she said that. It's like, why don't you try to rest? Why don't you try to go in the pool and rest? Because you want this to happen quicker than your body's going. Your body's still running for it. So I tried to rest, but it's very hard to rest when you have excruciate, I don't know how to say that word, but you know what I mean, pain coming every 5 to 10 minutes. But I tried. My birth team, my mom, my husband, and Danisha would take turns massaging my back. I had lavender essential oil playing. They would put, lavender. I would put music. I would put my meditations. I would just keep breathing, keep breathing. Around 4 a.m. or so, she tells me, this is Wednesday night around 4 a.m. She says, I'm going to go home. And when she said that, I was like, what do you mean you're going to go home? I felt like I'm not progressing. No, like, what do you mean? She said, I'm going to go home. I don't want you to think that you're not progressing. I just got to check in some things and get some rest, So she leaves. I stay in there with my birth team, keep on laboring every 5 minutes, try to rest. They went out that morning. Mustafa and Danisha, they got me fresh juice. But my body, when it's in so much pain, the way it releases this is by puking. It happened to me in the miscarriage as well. So I started to puke everything I would get. They had a bag on site. When I said nauseous, they would bring the bag because I was going to puke. Even a sip of water that I would have, puking. It's just how my body handles like high pain. And so they went to like try to get me juice. I would not even stand up all the way straight, but I was trying to do everything to get it going because she wanted me to relax, to reserve my energy for when I had to push. But I wanted to accelerate my birth because I was so over it already. I had already over, I don't know, 20 hours of this. So I'm trying to walk up and down in excruciating pain. They bring me a juice. I try to sip it. Nope. So then we called Jenna, which is the second midwife. Jenna said, hey, this is now Thursday, going through the pain all day. Remember, we went to Luisi's house Tuesday night, Wednesday, and this is now Thursday. We went Wednesday night, Tuesday night. We went Wednesday night to Luisi's all day there Thursday. So Jenna says, hey, around 9, even if I think you're progressing or not, around 9 p.m., I'm going to come in to check you. Not check my cervix, just check on me and to see if we're going to give you antibiotics because your water had broken now for over 8 hours. So I had hope that when she would come in, things would speed up. She got there at 9, but the last thing she said to me, I said, what can we do to accelerate this? She said, you could drink castor oil to get you back into active labor, like back into like 1 to 2 minutes contraction. So they go get me a juice and get me castor oil. They bring it back. I take it and I puke it all because I can't hold anything down. And so she comes in and I've been with 1 to 2 minute contractions, like between from like 6:45 p.m. till she comes at like 9 something. Literally can't, like back to back contractions. So she comes in to the place and she says, I'm going to give you an IV so that you can reserve energy to push when you have to push. With my pain, I give her my arm. She puts it in IV. They give me antibiotics. And then the IV kind of like, Mustafa said that was the first time that when I got up, I like got up straight. Like it kind of refreshed me a little. So I said, let's start walking. We go up and down, up and down. And if you're a guy, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna lay out the story. So this is my warning, okay? I start walking up and down, and then I go back in the room and I look at her and I look at my Danisha. I was like, I'm so like over it now. I want to have this baby. She's in position. She keeps on checking her heart rate. She's fine. She's, her head is here. You could feel her head like here, but that was it. I'm like, when is she going to actually go in the pelvic floor? Like I thought she had to like get in the pelvic floor. And that's when I would feel like this pressure that women talk about. And this is why I'm saying that every birth is so different. Because for me, she had her head here in position, but I thought it's when I feel her inside the pelvic, but it wasn't. It wasn't until I started to push that she went into the pelvic and turned her face, because most babies are born facing your back. So there I said, I'm I'm going to go use the bathroom. I had a feeling that I needed to use the bathroom. Not like that feeling like, oh, it feels like you got to use the bathroom and that's when you push. No, I really had to use the bathroom. But it was so painful to sit on the toilet that I always took someone with me. I only like went to the bathroom once and I took my doula that time. And then this time I told Mustafa to come with me because the pain were coming so quick. So I sit down in her toilet. And I remember my doula, when we were training about breathing technique and everything, she had told me, Robelsiec, you are going to make a decision and that's when the baby will come. And it's like, okay. But when I was in that toilet, I really had to use the bathroom. I had no sensation of like her coming out. But I said, I'm going to push so hard. I'm so over being in labor. I'm so over having these contractions every 2 to 3 minutes that I'm going to push so hard and just hope that she sticks her head into my pelvic. So I'm sitting down. I try to pee and a contractions come and I get so upset that I have yet another contraction sitting down here. I can't pee. I can't poop. So I push really hard and I go, ah! That was the first time I screamed the whole time. Otherwise, I was doing my oh. For 4 out for 6. I was good the whole time until that moment. That's the first time I screamed. And so then my midwife is in the floor in the room on the computer and she goes, what was that? Was that a contraction? And I said, no, that's a baby. And she comes into the bathroom, turns out the light. Mustafa's holding me. I'm sitting down. She looks at me in the eyes. She says, you want to go to the room? You want to go to the room? I said, no, I don't want to go to the room. I didn't want to walk because of, the pain. She says, okay, so the baby's coming. You need to stand up. Otherwise you're going to rip bad. You're going to rip. You're going to tear worse if you keep seated. So I stand up and something intuitively tells me to put one leg up, like it was going to be easier. So I stand up, I put one leg on the toilet and the other one I'm just standing. And in this moment, there is like the highest waves of meditation that you can get into. And I'm there. I used to hear about this in Dr. Joe Dispenza, Rewire, about the theta waves and the different waves of meditation that you could get into. And so we're so stimulated nowadays that we don't really get that part. But I was there. I was in the highest form of meditation that I have ever been in my life. I only heard, and disclaimer to whoever believes in whatever they believe, but I could only hear myself and God in my brain. I could only hear that conversation going, where it was in the video. I look a little delusional, but in that moment, I could only hear that. And so she's asking me questions and I'm answering so honestly. If you guys have watched the podcast and stuff, you know that sometimes I feel hard to like speak up on the things that I want, but I was answering honestly there. She said, do you want this? I was saying, no, this, nah. And then she's like, do you want to feel the baby? The head is coming. And I say, no, but she still grabbed my hand and pushed. And she said, okay, take it slow. So I don't scream. The only scream was the first one when I got angry. That's it. I start to go, and then I feel it coming. I move my pelvic a little up with my feet up. I push and her head comes out. Thank God my mom was there. I had in my bag a phone, a charged camera. I had 2 tripods. My mom recorded and I was so happy. She's not super high tech. So when I realized that she was a girl, I'm like, I hope she hit record because everybody was so nervous at that point. My midwife is sitting down on the floor, look like ready to catch the baby. Mustafa's right next to me. You'll see the picture on Instagram. And my doula and my mom are at the door of the bathroom. My mom's recording and she's using my doula to help her because usually you get an assistant, and she had a feeling that it was going to be time for me to come, but she's like, oh, let me wait just a little. And so her assistant was on her way from Brooklyn and didn't get there on time. And so then the head comes. She's like, I need you to take it slow so that you don't tear. So the head comes and I'm waiting. But I'm waiting. I can't tell you guys if I got a contraction. I had no pain at this point. If you're listening to me, no pain at this point of pushing. Pushing to me was the easiest thing. I had no pain. I was in another world. I did not feel any pain. Everybody that sees the video that I have, like my aunt and people who I feel comfortable to share such a vulnerable moment, they're like, they start crying thinking that I'm in pain because you see a head hanging off me, but I'm not in pain at this point. I am so happy that this is happening after 30 hours of feeling pain. So when the head is out, I say to myself, okay, let me slow down because otherwise I don't want to rip. Like I'm aware of that. And so then I breathe in, and from when the head came out is 43 seconds to when I like give it a little push and the whole body comes out. She says, you want to hold your baby? So then she tells me, sit down. I sit down on the floor and she gives me the baby, and the baby started to cry right away. And I could not believe. In the video, I do say, thank you, God, but I still don't acknowledge that the baby's out. I'm saying thank you, God, that the pain is over. It wasn't until later that they FaceTime my sister, and my sister's hysterical crying. And then I look at her, and in the screen, I see that I have the baby on top. And then I start to cry like, wow, my baby's here. But during that time, I was still so in the theta wave, whatever the highest wave of meditation, that I was like, just so glad that the pain was over. And it was magical. It was everything I ever wanted. I remember when I was in the labor, not in the active labor, thinking to myself, well, I'm gonna be a mom of one because I'm not going through all this pain again. Like thinking all these things. I was very proud that I never felt like, take me to the hospital, that I prepared myself for my story, for my birth enough to know and be aware of my choices. I think whatever you choose is fine, but are you aware of your choices and the choices that you're making? Like, is that something that you want? And if you want it, you're not going to be guilty because you knew your choices. But I was so happy I never once asked for none of that. And yeah, after that, I birthed the placenta. That didn't hurt at all. I had a huge placenta. I was going to get it encapsulated, but because I did end up getting antibiotics, I can't. So that was that. But it would have been nice. If you want to get yours encapsulated, let me know. Monique is an amazing person. She does encapsulations, and she actually does like little necklaces and stuff with like the umbilical cord, if that's something that you want. They all got to feel the umbilical cord pulsing still when it came out. We waited for Mustafa's mom to come to cut the umbilical cord. And after that, we got cleansed up a little, make sure I was good before she headed out. My baby was 8.5 pounds. I'm not sharing the time that she was born, but it was very late at night. And she was a tall, big baby. I birthed an 8.5 baby. What? I watched the video because when she comes out and she's on top of me, she's like this. I'm like, how was that inside of me plus a huge placenta? I feel you do forget, by the way, what the women say, you forget it, you forget it. You do forget. I mean, I know what I went through, but the joy that I feel, today is day 4, and I feel like last night I fell in love with her. Like last night I was like, I'll give my life for you. And it takes time. Some women feel that right away. Some women, it takes time. It's a person that you're meeting, and they're meeting you, even though they've been inside of you this whole time. And that those are all other subjects, but that's my birth story. There's no way to put into words the gratitude that I have for being able to birth my baby the way I wanted to birth it. I'm so happy. I'm so grateful that I got to experience that I got to do it the way I wanted it. I feel unstoppable. I feel so proud. I'm so grateful. Shout out to Chloe, Jenna, my mom, Danisha, and stuff. I would have never been able to do that. Luisi for letting me borrow her home. If it wasn't for them, they kept the same ambience that I needed. They were there for me. They were all joking that their hands hurt, that they didn't need to go to the gym from all the massages that they were doing in my back. It was a dream come true. And that's my story. I am very grateful for you guys being here. We're going to do a Q&A on Instagram so that you can ask some questions. I've learned so much through the process. Everything is perspective. So if there is things that you're interested in or questions that you may have, I'm going to tag everybody on a post that helped me out. And yeah, that's my birth story, guys. Can you believe that? So I look forward to doing a Q&A to answer any questions. And thank you for being here.